Okay, last one, pre-algebra, here we go. So we're finishing up equations with fractions. We just did addition and subtraction, so now we're going to see some multiplication and division. So we need to recall, to divide by a fraction, we really multiply by its reciprocal. So the reciprocal, remember, means the flip. So if I have the fraction 1/2, the reciprocal is the flip, 2/1. So we're going to multiply by its reciprocal if it says to divide. So here we go. What I mean by this. Number 17, we're still solving, trying to get x by itself. When we see that 2/3, the fraction, is next to x, so 2/3 times x equals 48. So we want to get x by itself. Well, right now the fraction 2/3 is being multiplied by x. So in order to get x by itself, we would really have to divide by that 2/3. But dividing a fraction by a fraction, that is really, really ugly. It's a no-no. We don't like to do that. So instead of dividing by a fraction, really, to divide a fraction means multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply. Well, what's the flip, or the switch, of 2/3? 3/2, or 3/2. And what we do to one side, we must do to the other. So 2/3 times 3/2. Well, that really means crosses out our 3's. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So on the left side, all we have is x. And on the right, we have 48 times 3/2. You can type that directly in your calculator. 48 times 3 divided by 2. Or you can type it in as 48 times and use your fraction button A, B/C. So 48 times 3 divided by 2. Or 3 fraction button 2. Either way, you will get x equals 72. Okay, perfect. Number 18. 7 equals negative 1/3 times w. So again, we would have to divide, because right now w is being multiplied, so we do the opposite. So instead of dividing, because we can't divide a fraction by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. Well, if it's negative 1/3, the reciprocal is negative 3/1. And what we do to one side, we must do to the other. So really that negative can go with 3 or it can go with 1. It does not matter, as long as only one of them is negative. Because a negative 1/3 times a negative 3/1 makes a positive. So negative 3 cancels with that negative 3. 1 cancels with 1. So that's how we get w alone. If both of those were negative, it would say negative 3 divided by negative 1, which is a positive 3. So the negatives wouldn't cancel. So if I multiply both sides by negative 3/1, well, 7 times negative 3/1 is the same thing as negative 3 times 7. And negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. So w equals negative 21. So dividing fractions is, or multiplying by the reciprocal, is much, much quicker. 19. 60 equals negative 4/5 k. So 4/5 is being multiplied by k, so you guessed it, divide, which really means multiply by the flip. So again, we have a negative, so you can put it at the top or bottom, it does not matter, but we have to flip the numbers. So 5/4. So we're multiplying both sides by negative 5/4. So because a 4 is on top and a 4 is on bottom of those fractions, they cancel, and a 5 is on top and a 5 is on bottom, they cancel. And we're left with k. So now we just type in negative 5 for a fraction button, 4, times 60. And you're right, negative 75. K equals negative 75. Number 20. 1/4 times p equals negative 9. So we must multiply by the flip. 1/4 becomes 4 over 1. That is our reciprocal. So the 4's cancel and the 1's cancel. And if you're not sure on that, type it in your calculator. 4 over 1, so 4 fraction by 1 times 1 fraction by 4 will give us 1p, which is what we want, a p by itself, equals, well, negative 9 times 4 over 1 is the same thing as negative 9 times 4, which is negative 36. So p equals negative 36. Okay, last one's 21. So now we have multiple fractions in an equation. We have 2/3 times x equals negative 4/9. So x is being multiplied. So we know we have to divide, and we're dividing a fraction. So that really means multiply by the flip. So we're getting x alone, so we're multiplying 2/3. But in order to cancel it out, we flip it, 3 over 2. And that's what goes to both sides. Because 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 divided by 2 times 3, or 6, is 1. So we have 1x. And now we can multiply our fractions. So we can do this very quickly by hand, or you can use your calculator. If we do it by hand, remember, a fraction times a fraction, we just go straight across. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. So that took care of the top. 9 times 2 is 18. So negative 12 over 18. So type that in your calculator. Second PRB. And it simplifies to negative 2/3. We could also just type in our calculator from this step right here. We could type it in from here. Negative 4/9 times 3 over 2 using our fraction button. Okay, 22. We've got a mixed number, a whole number, and the variable. So right now, the variable is being multiplied by 2. So to get 2 by itself, you're right, divide. So really, if we divide by 2, well, now I've got a fraction, a mixed number with a fraction, divided by 2. So a fraction is within a bigger fraction. That is an ugly, ugly mess. So we can do the same thing with whole numbers, because really a whole number, 2, is the same thing as the fraction 2 over 1. So I could always rewrite a whole number. So since we don't like dividing fractions, we still use the same process. Multiply by the reciprocal. So to get r by itself, we multiply by the flip, which is 1 over 2. And what we do to one side, got to do the other. So now r is alone, and we have 1/2 times negative 1 and 1/3. So this is one where you have a couple options. Fraction button 1, fraction button 2, times negative 1, fraction button 1, fraction button 3, equals r. We can do it the long way. Or we can convert that mixed number by hand, and then we can solve. So if we convert it by hand, we would first have to turn this into an improper fraction. Multiply, then add. So we'd get 3 plus 1, which is 4, over the same denominator of 3. So really this is negative 4/3 times 1/2 equals r. Either way will get you the same answer. Either way you will get the answer, well, r equals negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, and 2 times 3 is 6, which is the same thing if you hit second PRB in your calculator as negative 2/3. So r equals negative 2/3. Final answer. Again, you could do it from the beginning, from this step right here. You could do it in your calculator. That is up to you. I am not going to specify which one. I recommend using the calculator. Make sure you're being careful. Okay, 23. 7 4/7 times v equals negative 106. So we have to divide. But if I divide, I'd be dividing a fraction by a fraction. Ugly. So instead, multiply by the reciprocal. Well, if we have a mixed number, we have a number 7, and then we have a fraction. So we can't just flip it because 7 and 4/7 is different than 7 and 7/4. If you type those in the calculator, 7 and 4/7 will give you a different number than if I typed in 7 and 7/4. They're not the same. So in this case, because we are moving the mixed number to the other side of the equation, we do have to actually convert this first. We have to take care of that. So, to convert it, gotta use that tire method. 7 times 7 is 49. And then we add the top number, 4. 49 plus 4 is 53. Over our denominator, 7. So we really have 53/7 times v equals negative 106. This is our problem. So that's our problem. So we see a fraction times v. So in order to get rid of that fraction, we have to multiply by the reciprocal. So the flip is 7 over 53. So what we do to one side, got to do to the other. 7 over 53 times negative 106. So negative 106 times 7 divided by 53. Well, negative times a positive is a negative. And when we simplify, this one actually comes out kind of pretty. Negative 14. So it looks like an awful mess, and then it comes out pretty. This would be one where I'd want to check, plug that in for v. So 7, fraction button 4, fraction button 7, times negative 14. Does it equal negative 106? Yes. So make sure this would be one where I'd be like, ooh, that's a little strange. Let's check our work. Last one, 24. Negative 2 and 1/12 equals 3/4 c. Our variable's on the right side. C is being multiplied by 3/4. I can't divide a fraction, so instead, multiply by the reciprocal. 4 divided by 4, 3 divided by 3 equals 1. So we have 1c on the right, and what we do to one side, we have to do the other. So we always have to bring over that negative 4/3. So we have negative 4/3 times negative 2 and 1/12. Again, calculator. Use that 4 fraction button 3. So that took care of that. Times negative 2 fraction button 1 fraction button 12. And once you type that in, hit equals, and you should get negative 25/9. C equals negative 25/9. I hope this was helpful. Tomorrow we will be going over this, so I need you to work hard after you've completed these notes and try your best on the homework. I think decimals will do a lot better with. We just need some more practice on the fractions. So I wanted you to get started, have an idea of the lesson, and come see me if you need any help. I will be back after lunch, so if you need any help today and you want some help during bison time to work on this, I would recommend it so you can get a good start on your homework. So tomorrow's going to be a breeze. Okay, have a good rest of your day, guys.